Shout out to you, Celia, Rosalind, Liz, Lauren. So throughout this, if y'all wanna take notes, move, breathe, make your tea, make your bed, you do whatever you want. Just tap in, just listen to it, see what you can get out of it. So shout out to everybody watching. You're looking at the Emyth Enterprise Chapter 4, first category of preference. And I'm basically going to read it for you. Right, I'm going to read Chapter 4 of the book, the first category of preference, from the book, The Emyth Enterprise. Okay, so there's 4 categories of preference. Now we're going to go through the first. All right. Okay, Chapter 4, the first category of preference, the visual ideal. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Anonymous. When I first read The Red Wheelbarrow, a poem by William Carlos Williams, it was a much younger man. But it wasn't until I found myself driving along a winding Sonoma County country road with a close friend on a rainy spring afternoon several years later that I fully appreciated it. If you've never been here, the springtime hills in Sonoma County, California, are like a rolling green sea. Nestled between the waves are small ranches, oak and eucalyptus trees, low-lying brush, and outcroppings of brown jagged rock. We were driving along a narrow fence-lined road when we came to a sharp turn. Upon turning the corner, we suddenly came face to face with a scene so vivid, so striking, that I clearly remember every part of it to this day. It was a small ranch house with bright green trim along the eaves and white molding around the windows and the door. As we turned the corner, the sun came out from behind a storm cloud and struck the house, transforming it into a blaze of yellow light shot up from the ground and blinding me with its radiance. My friend must also have been temporarily blinded because he slammed on the brakes and we skidded to a halt directly in front of the small house's fenced front yard. Standing before us in the middle of the yard, halfway between the fence and the house, was a large, glowing, bright red, meticulously cared for antique wagon. The drops of rainwater streaming down its sides glistened in the sun like diamonds. But that wasn't all, for surrounding the wagon was a yard full of pure white turkeys, their red wattles bobbing up and down. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Can you hold this image in your mind? Do you wonder whose yard it is and why the wagon had someone just fed the turkeys? What smells do you associate with this picture? What feelings come to mind? What thoughts arise from your past, from your imagination, from ideas you had about such things when you were a young boy or girl, or even now as you are today? Can you see how profoundly we're touched by such visual images? It should become immediately obvious to you how important the conception, creation, and maintenance of a strong visual impression is to the ultimate success of a business. A business like a farmyard, like an old country road, is first and foremost a visual thing. What a business looks like communicates more about its thoughts, feelings, considerations, and intentions more immediately and more lastingly, more humanely to the people with whom it interacts than anything else that business can do. As William Carlos Williams said, so much depends upon it, and so much does. It is virtually impossible for anyone to see anything without drawing an instantaneous, if unconscious, conclusion about it. In fact, it is not so much that we quickly draw conclusions about what we see, but the conclusions we draw, we already drawn before long we saw it. Long before we saw it. Each of us possess, or more accurately, is possessed by a vast underground visual storehouse we call unconscious. This storehouse, our unconscious, this picture book, is bursting with a rich, complex assortment of visual symbols, association, interpretations, judgments, meanings, feelings, and physical reactions. In short, conclusions, all of which conspire automatically with each other with laser-like speed to shape our very existence. What we wear, what we drive, where we work, where and how we live, what we think, the very objects, spaces, colors, distances, forms, and people we surround ourselves with, and by which we're surrounded. All are significant parts of this extraordinarily complex web of visual conclusions each of us has formed. A mother nursing her child, a grandmother preparing the Thanksgiving turkey for her grown-up children, her grandchildren, a young father rough housing with his son and their Labrador retriever in the back. Yard. That same man, grown gray, showing his grandson how to tune a carburetor in a period truck, a tall, distinguished man in an impeccably tailored dark navy blue suit, waiting outside a contemporary office building, are all pictures, visual representations of deeply held conclusions we all have made in some time in our lives. They may have even be representative of Carl Jung's archetypes, pictures that we all share, pictures that touches us all in the same way. There are an infinite number of such pictures, waiting to be understood, waiting to be identified, but working unconsciously in each and every one of us in the same way. No matter what any of us think, they shape our lives. Do you see what I mean? Do you understand the importance of this concept? So much depends on it. If all that we see touches us so immediately, so completely, if every visual impression we receive causes each of us to feel, think, and act in a certain pre-programmed, if not totally predictable way, and it does, is it any wonder then that the conception, creation, and maintenance of the visual impression of such a business is so critical to its success? Should it come as a surprise to you when I say that to conceive, create, and successfully maintain an extraordinarily effective business in Emyth enterprise has much to do with the management of impressions than it has to do with the management of people? The management of impressions is the management of people. And visual impressions are the most powerful impressions of all. The problem seems to be that the vast majority of business in this country, small or large, simply don't get it. Or what's worse, simply don't care. The search for excellence in theory seems somehow to have eluded us in this practice. Contrary to popular belief, there's an overwhelming poverty of the entrepreneurial spirit in this country. Walk or drive just about any commercial street or walk inside just about any business you choose, and you will immediately be accosted by the visual symptoms of our entrepreneurial malaise. Signs, windows, sidewalks, buildings, trucks, employees' dresses, bathrooms, floors, countertops, aisles, walls, run down, dirty, worn out, unimaginative, decaying, cluttered, confusion, a visual mess. Business disintegrating right before our eyes. Yet, all of those signs were new ones, all of those windows newly installed, all of the floors, the walls, the bathrooms, desks, the file cabinets, the trucks, the automobiles, the forklifts, the merchandise racks. Every single element of a business was at the outset a function of someone's dream. What happened? What stopped working? What do people think as they go to work there, as they buy there? What are the owners thinking? I believe it could be proven that a visual deteriorating business is the act of an emotionally deteriorating mind. What do people feel as if they are visually accosted to every day of their lives by all of this negativity, neglect, and disinterest? Well, let me tell you a story. There once was a relatively small company that was struggling against the odds to gain market share from a huge Goliath of a company. The little company sputtered for years, suffering from poor leadership and a mix of nearly indistinguishable products that confused consumers, that performed poorly, and that were unattractive in design. Their already meager market share continued to plummet, as did the value of their stock. They were on the verge of going away forever when someone had a brilliant idea. Let's bring back one of our original founders to run the place. He appears to be the last person associated with this company who had any sort of vision. So they did. They brought in a founding partner to be the new CEO. So dire was the financial condition of the company, but so much faith did the new CEO have in its potential. Then he agreed to return to work for an annual salary of $1 plus stock options. He began to turn things around almost immediately. He oversaw the design of a sleek new product and soon thereafter offered it in a range of bright colors that were mimicked by scores of other companies that manufactured everything from ring blinders to kitchen blenders. The product took off. It set a new standard for visual preferences in terms of color. Success followed success, until one day in 2001, the CEO stood in front of a crowd at the company's annual convention and announced a new product that would revolutionize the entire industry and eventually account for 70% of a particular market. Yes, that CEO is Steve Jobs. That company, of course, is Apple. The long list of revolutionary products includes the original colorful iMac, the iPod, iTunes, and the iPhone. The company is no longer on the verge of extinction, and the stock options, along with its Pixar Animation Studios investment, of course, proved to be a good thing for Steve Jobs. He is now, among other things, the Walt Disney Company's largest single shareholder. Though its products, its packaging, its retail stores, Apple, through its products, its packaging, and its retail stores, Apple demonstrates how important the visual ideal is to business. Let me tell you another story that will further illuminate this point for you. It is about two brothers who owned a great store. Now, not that it was always a great store, it wasn't. Indeed, if you had seen it when I first saw it, you'd have to agree with me that in Marty and Stowe's Weisberg's business, a visual renaissance has since taken place. Transformation, Marty called it. Miracle, said Stowe. But whatever he called it, it happened this way. Several years ago, Marty Weisberg was called home from graduate schools at University of San Francisco to help his older brother, Saul, run the family business after their father, Morris, died unexpectedly at the young age of 53. Fortunately for both of them, the business, Weisberg's Army-Navy surplus store, sort of ran itself, if only in a lackluster way. Customers came and went. Employees too, and nobody seemed to know why. Although Saul and Marty had served their apprenticeship in the business from the ages of 8 and 10, respectively, most of their time had been spent at their father's beck and call, unpacking the green, gray, blue, brown, and black military merchandise that arrived in enormous brown cardboard boxes from who knew where, and pricing according to their father's cryptic, hand-printed instructions, using a pricing strategy that only Morris understood. They then stacked the merchandise on the already jammed, packed shelves and hung it on the special racks that their father ordered them to move around the store at what were apparently strategically significant times of the week or the month, from the back of the store to the front, to either the right side or the left, down the middle of the aisle or by the cash register. On clear, sunny days, merchandise was moved to the sidewalk and ceremoniously labeled "sale" in bright red letters, even though both Marty and Saul knew the prices hadn't been changed. Marty and Saul swept the floors, threw out the trash, cleaned the windows, and occasionally, only occasionally, were entrusted to work with the customers, who their father seemed to know wouldn't buy and rarely did. Morris dealt with all the rest, the real customers. Unfortunately, and despite the long, dreary, shore-filled hours they spent in the stores after school and on weekends most of their adolescent years, neither Marty nor Saul knew the business, as their father was given to say. Morris was so busy working the store that he never gotten around to teaching them. And then he died, and the store was theirs, a business both Marty and Saul hated. Not only for all the time it had taken from them as boys, but for their inability. Now they could finally be free of it once and for all, and say goodbye to it, to let go of it, and finally to get on with the purpose of their individual lives. Perhaps that was it. There was no purpose. To Marty and Saul, if there was life at the other than the business, they didn't know what it was. So they lived the only one they knew. For the first 6 months or so, Saul and Marty glowered at each other across distances of their own making, repeating in silence the dreaded rituals of their boyhood's past. But now, without their father to goad on them, the rituals were even more lifeless than before. No, Morris was there to tell them to move the racks. No, Morris was there to remind them to paint the red sale signs. No, Morris exhorted them to sweep the floors, to take out the trash, or to wash the windows. No, there was no Morris there to do it, so Saul did it. He did the only thing he could think of to do. He became Morris. He became the father to both of them lost. One day he was Saul, the next day Morris. Saul, in fact, became the chief proponent of old code. He was doing the things in the past, in the ways of the past. He began to spend long hours after the store was closed, while Marty had gone home to rummage through his father's effects, to seek out clues, a trail, a sign that could teach him what his father never did, that could teach him what his father never knew, what his father knew. A new light in Marty was beginning to form. Marty was beginning to awaken to the exhilarating possibility that he was now finally free to become himself. Marty became an inspired dreamer, eager to transform old coal into new coal. You could see it in his eyes. A friend of mine who worked closely with Walt Disney for more than 15 years related to me what it was that made Disney a special man to all those who knew him. He had an innate ability to see things whole in a completely different, original way, my friend said. Where everyone else in a meeting would be caught up in specifics, Walt could see the finished product. He could envision what everyone else seemed to miss, the magic that lived within every product just beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. That's where Walt lived. My friend told me, in the magic beneath the surface of things. And only when he revealed what he saw there, it could become obvious to everyone else that it was there all that time. That, I might suggest, is also where Marty Weisberg, in his own small but not insignificant way, was beginning to live beneath the surface of things. Indeed, I believe that it is there, beneath the surface of things, where the surface, the true reality actually resides. And so it is that the visual preference is, so immediately critical to the success of a business. So the visual preference is immediately critical to the success of a business. One day, that thought came to Marty. It hit him square between the eyes. Marty clearly saw for the first time that he had always been there, had haunted him throughout his childhood, had clung to him like an oppressive gray fog as he left school every day on his way to the store, had waited for him like that enormous, grotesque Sumatran toad he had once seen at the zoo, squatting motionless and as a stone in its small glass aquarium, its mottled brown lumping skin glistening in the gray tropical light. It was all so ugly. From the front of the store, with its faded red neon letters spelling out the family in belligerent block letters 14 feet long and 4 feet high across the square face of the old brick building, to the inside of the store, with its low brown tin ceiling and its rows of fluorescent lights, which could never brighten the darkness of the store beneath them, from the black, perennially soiled linoleum floors, the gray metal racks with their squeaky rubber reels, and the rows of the dark metal shelves, to the hand-lettered signs hanging from the ceiling telling the customers where to find among the bewildering array of sloppily stacked merchandise the pants, jackets, boots, socks, belts, knives, canteens, shirts, hats, tents, sleeping bags, mosquito nets, socket wrenches, and all the other exotic military paraphernalia known as surplus. It all displayed a blatant lack of attention, of care, of imagination, of interest. Then there was the back. What happened to my camera? That's weird. Then there was the back of the store. The massive rusted steel frame doors, the thick, scared, ancient planks of the floor, and the loading dock, stained black from years of abuse. The swollen, cracked, tortured asphalt of the narrow, twisting alley with its ever-present trash, broken bottles, overflowing garbage cans, and sagging chain-link fences running between the dark, stained brick back walls of neighboring stores. Finally, there was the bathroom, small and dank like a cold, sweaty closet with its unpainted concrete floor, both the wash bowl and toilet stained and streaked after years of use, with its solitary, naked 100-watt bulb hanging from its impenetrable shadows above, the only other light coming from a small window above the sink, barred against forcible entry, as if though anyone would try to break in there. The whole room was filthy from years of neglect. The dirt, the cobwebs, and whatever other indescribable blight had risen from the alley behind the store had crusted over the window and casted a yellow spot pall over the peeling, damp brown door and walls. As a boy, Marty would do anything other than go in the bathroom in that store. And when he finally wait any longer, he'd go down the street to the gas station at the corner where at least the restroom was clean. At last, Marty fully understood what was about the store that was so deeply depressed him, despite what Marty had believed to be true by his father, that he loved nothing else but his business, that he cared for nothing else but the store. Marty now knew that was exactly the opposite was true. He knew that the store had so angered Morris, so infuriated him, so consumed him, that there was simply nothing left for anyone or anything else. In fact, that it wasn't the fact that he hated the store that depressed Marty so much, but the fact that his father had. The ugliness of Weisberg's Army Navy was a mute but eloquent statement to the fact that his father felt for himself and that became a prisoner there until the only way out was to die. So that was the madness that Marty saw in Soul's eyes. Like his father before him, Soul too had become a prisoner owner of the store. Like his father before him, the store enraged Soul. Like his father before him, the store became Soul's justification for not living. First for Morris and now for Soul. The store had become an ugly fact of their absence of love for what they were doing and of the life they both had given up to it. And like Morris, Soul mistakenly thought that by possessing the store, by owning it, by keeping it his secret, he could ultimately get even. Only Marty knew different. At Disneyland, it takes 5,000 gallons of paint each year to keep the park looking better than you. There are 500,000 costume pieces to maintain and more of the 10 to maintain and more than 100,000 light bulbs that have to be changed as they bum out. Then there are the gardens, the restaurants, the myriad of small, insignificant tasks associated with the visual preparation of Disneyland for every day that the park opens for business. Just as Walt had envisioned it in his dreams of the business back in the beginning when most people thought him to be crazy. You want to do what? When the park was an outsized, elaborate, and insane idea, which, according to common business wisdom at the time, and at this time, and for all times, it seems, could never be justified economically. It was that idealistic. McDonald's has more than 31,000 locations and is nearly 500,000 employees who serve 47 million customers daily. Recent estimates reveal that it costs the company more than $7 million a day to perform the daily ritual of visually preparing the floors, the equipment, the windows, the parking lots, the sidewalks, the signage, the counters, the uniforms, and the equipment. All of the unavoidable and integral parts of visual integrity of McDonald's corporate image as imagined by its founder, Ray Kroc. At the very outset of the business, when he had crew people clean up all the litter within block of each restaurant. At Federal Express, it costs an estimated $70,000 a day to steam wash the company's 30,000 internationally recognized trucks to make certain that FedEx maintains its visual impacts as was envisioned by Fred Smith long before the business began, long before the first truck rolled out the door. Marty and I talked about the miraculous transformation of his and Soul's business. I swear, Marty said to me, it struck me just like that. He continued, a dark light glowing in his eyes. There was a mourning period, of course, even though I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. Naturally, Soul and I mourned in different ways. To Soul, mourning was an act of honoring the past. He felt somewhere that he had let our father down and he had disappointed him, that he had taken more active interest in the business, our father would have died. So he was compelled to act out every little thing my father did, exactly as my father would have done it. To me, Marty continued, mourning was an act of grieving for my lost childhood, the games I never played, the playing we never did as a family, the lack of pure joy in our life. At first, I thought it was Soul who was going crazy, but then I came to realize we both were. But, of course, we had no childhood. Our father was a lunatic. He raised us to be lunatics. We were simply acting out his wishes. Gradually, deep in my heart, I began to feel a sharp, aching, almost unbearable pain for the extraordinary price my father had made Soul and me pay as children. The loss of joy, the loss of imagination, the loss of curiosity, of color, of vitality, of creativity, the loss of our childhood, the loss of ourselves. I swear, I carried the pain of that loss around with me every day. From the day I came home to the store after my father died to the day that the light turned itself on in my heart. And suddenly, I found myself free. Not as a 24-year-old man, but as a boy. It suddenly became clear to me, not so much something I thought, but in burst feelings so strong, so deeply compelling that I began to sob uncontrollably. I must have cried for hours. This might sound stupid for you, Marty said to me, almost unapologetically, as though what he was about to say would be impossible for me to understand. But it was like I fell in love with myself as a boy. It was like I had, in an instant, became both the father I wish I'd had and the boy I wish I could have been. It was like the father I had now become touched me, his son, and said, trust your heart. Whatever you need to do, do it. Don't wait. There's no time to die. I love you. Marty continued, almost in a whisper, tears welling in his eyes. At that moment, I loved my father more than I could ever remember. I could finally cry for him, for the loss of his child, for the terrible place he has paid for being a prisoner and prisoner in his making. God, how desperate he must have been. He was quiet for a moment, then went on. And what happened when I was reunited with myself and with this strange but wonderful little boy I had been, I finally realized that I was suddenly free to do anything I wish I could have done before. With the store, I could sell it. I could give it away. I could give my share to Soul. I could even burn it down if I wanted to. Our father was gone. The prison door was open. There was no track to follow but my own. I didn't need permission anymore. The visual transformation of a business is an emotional thing. It comes best from the heart. It is a creation that, when done exceedingly well, is endowed with pure passion that touches something beyond the ordinary, the most of human expressions. A statement of dignity, of caring, of consideration, but almost of all, of love. It has less to do with the business as a commercial enterprise than it has to do with the business as a human enterprise. Its relationship with people, their ideas, and the things that connect people and their ideas with the world around them. In this regard, the business does not only produce products, it becomes the product of the people by whom and for whom it is created. To effectively differentiate the business as a product from all other businesses, a business must be a visual interpretation of a specific and well thought out point of view or philosophy regarding the questions we humans have asked ourselves since time immemorial. Questions of freedom, of God, of law, of integrity, of purpose, of loyalty, of service, of honor, of order, of beauty, of self-respect and respect for others, and many more. In short, to rise above the ordinary, a business must become a visual statement of belief, of meaning, a medium through which people communicate with one another about what they believe in, what they care for, what is important to them. Taken to the next level, visualization of a business is an art form. And just like a work of art, there are 6 tangible components that comprise the visual matrix that need to be considered in the construction of a business. The 6 components are color, form, scale, order, detail, information. Color. Color is the first thing people see and is therefore a critical component of the visual matrix. What colors will best communicate the purpose of the business? Is the business playful? Is the business serious? Is it upbeat? Is it formal? Is the business intended to touch the hearts of people, just their minds, or both their hearts and minds? When I say playful, do certain colors come to mind? When I say somber, do you see the dark colors it evokes? When I say upbeat, can you visualize what those colors might be? Can you hear the sounds such colors make? Form. What form does the business take? From the logo, from the style of the dress, to the architecture, to the products. Is it bold, adventurous, sedate, austere, comfortable, or powerful? Does it call for rounded, soft edges or sharp, angular edges? Are there few edges at all? Can you imagine in your mind's eye what form a comfortable business might take? Do you remember the old yellow ranch house with its small flock of white turkeys and its antique red wagon? Was that comfortable or was it adventurous? Can you imagine Thanksgiving in such a place? The family around the table, grandma in her wide-rimmed dresses, granddad grinning at his youngest grandson, who's sitting in his high chair and throwing food across the table. Everyone chattering about the past, the present, the future. Food streaming and plentiful on the huge dining room table. Comfortable, austere, sedate, powerful. When you know what you wish to communicate in your business, the form will almost immediately appear. Scale. And what of the scale of the business? Is it built for people? Is it built to intimidate people? Does it take our breath away or does it make us laugh? Does it say this is going to be one hell of a good time, as Disneyland says, stretching out as far as the eye can see, or does it confine us that we simply want to get out? It is the scale of a Gothic church or a miniature railroad. Is it the scale of a Gothic church or a miniature railroad? A Gothic church is not built for comfort. A miniature railroad does not convey power. Order. Order is such a critical component of the visual business that I am continually amazed at how oblivious most businesses seem to be to the price they pay every single day for ignoring it. Order is just what it says. It is all things in their place. Its cleanliness, its impeccability. It is a deep, abiding sense of control. That there is a logic, a sensitivity, a commitment to keeping the jungle out of the clearing. It is a belief in the special quality of human life. It is the meticulous attention paid to the maintenance, to the surface of things, the sustaining, the newness, the freshness, the essence of things, that we have envisioned them new. Order is preparing the ground before us as though God himself were to visit. Detail. Once people have walked in the door, once they have taken a closer look, it is the attention to detail they begin to notice. The shining copper rivets, exactly placed 2 inches apart of the aluminum waste baskets. The specially designed pin with the company's logo on shirts or aprons of every employee. Detail is the care one puts into the little things of the business. As people look closer, they are surprised by what they find. Information. Every business must find a visual way to transmit information to its customers, its employees, its suppliers, and its lenders. The information they perceive they need in the most visually compelling way possible. A small business consulting firm covers its reception area walls with impact reports, letters from its clients, telling the world how their business is improving. A pet store places charmingly informative picture cards next to each cage, describing the inhabitants traits as a pet, as well as where they came from, what they eat, whether they are good for children, and the amount of care that they require. An auto body shop provided its customers with a large glass window looking into the shop floor where its employees about to go into their specialized tasks and uniforms with equipment color-coded by function, while a CD player over a PA system described what the customer is watching. Of course, there are options in all of this, whether it be a meat market, a grocery store, an auto dealership, a semiconductor plant, a church, or an Apple computer store. The visualization of a business can be either reduced to the merely pragmatic or raised to the ideal. It can be ordinary or sublime, but it is certain that the higher one reaches, the more power one feels. Okay? Given their different perspectives, it wasn't easy for either of them, both Marty and Saul, before they began to talk. At first, Saul reminded Marty of Moore's. He got angry, he stormed away from his office, he'd stayed hunkered down at his desk for days. But gradually, over a period of several months, as Marty describes it, Morris finally let go of him. The truth was, Marty went on, that Saul and I had more in common with each other that we never did with our father. They began to talk, they began to share. They began to feel what it was like to be brothers. At long, the last gulf between them vanished, and Marty told Saul what he had in mind. I want this place to become a place of light, Marty said. I want people to come from all over town just to see it, whether they buy something or not. I want to put in a small restaurant, a coffee shop, an indoor playground for little kids to play with their parents while walking around the store, with someone to watch them and take care of them for as long as their parents want. I want there to be a small stream running through the playground with a waterfall rolling down the ceiling. I want a cowfish, golden and white, black spouted koi swimming in the stream with green plants, and a place for the kids to feast the fish 3 times a day, and a small petting zoo with lambs and pygmy goats and miniature horses. I want the place to be bright, open, and colorful, and most of all, I want it to be clean, spotless, absolutely perfect. I want it to be fun, too. I want people to love being here, our employees and our customers, and you, Saul, and me. I want to tear out the ceiling and go straight up to the roof, joists to give us some room to breathe. I want to tear out the wallboard and sandblast the brick walls until they're absolutely new, bright red and white. I want to tear up the linoleum and lay down 10 strips of clear white oak intermixed with brick and flagstone paths leading to the garden at the base of the waterfall. I want to have bright grass, green, antique benches located through the store, so that if people want to take the load off their feet, they can. I want there to be music, not muzak, but real music, a live piano or a string quartet, and sometimes, just for the hell of it, a small rock band to give the place a kick in the ass. I want to make colorful products, no more dark, blue, black, green, gray, and brown, but bright blue and red and yellow and green. And the products for camping, hiking, fishing, hunting, all outdoor recreation and sports. And I want them to be displayed colorfully. Almost done. Dramatically, with big, colorful plastic keys given to the customers when they walk in the door, to use in video terminals to provide them with the information they'll need about the more difficult to understand products. So they'll never have to ask anyone where anything is or what it does or what the difference between one product or the other. Can you see it? So, and that is only the beginning. I want this place to shine, and I want something grand, something absolutely astonishing, something totally unexpected and stunning, suspended from the ceiling by an invisible wire to swoop down on the customers as they walk in the front door. Perhaps one month it'll be a giant glider, or another month a real biplane, or even better. How about an incredible true-to-life model of American bald eagle with 18-foot wings stretched out on either side, staring down at everyone with its huge, sharp, yellow eagle eyes? Most of all, so I want to change our name in the face of the building. I want our sign to soar from the roof that no one can possibly miss it. And I want the sign to say, flying high and field stoned green. Marty reached behind him, took out a large brown paper wrap package, tore it open, and turned the artboard within it around so that So could see. So started the illustration and stared at the illustration and blinked twice before saying, "But what does it mean?" Marty began to laugh, then to roar, holding his sides, tears welling from his eyes. "It means, old buddy, things are about to change." The store succeeded. In fact, it exceeded all of Marty's expectation. Saul watched all of this in his amazement. Weisberg's Army Navy surplus became a sporting goods, camping, mountain climbing empire with stores everywhere. Can you guess what that chain, that empire is called today? No, it's not Weisberg's. It's not even Flying High and Fieldstone Green. Can you guess? You'd probably be wrong, but I can tell you this. The 6 components of the visual matrix all come together in perfect unison at this amazing enterprise. On your next or first visit to a Starbucks, an Apple store, a FedEx office, or a similar business, challenge yourself to notice the interplay of the 6 components of the visual matrix: color, form, scale, order, detail, and information. Chapter 4, the first category of preference. And here are the summary. Designing the enterprise, takeaway points. The visual ideal is vital to every business and every industry. The conception, the creation, and maintenance of the visual impression of a business is critical to its success. The problem seems to be that the vast majority of businesses in this country, small or large, simply don't get it, and what's worse, simply don't care. Walk or drive down just about any commercial street or walk inside just about any business you choose, you will immediately be accosted by the visual symptoms of our entrepreneur menage. I believe it can be proven that a visually deteriorating business is an act of an emotionally deteriorating mind, of leadership on the verge of failure. The 6 components of visual preference are color, form, scale, order, detail, and information. Color is the first thing people see, and therefore is a critical component of the visual matrix. Form follows color in the order of importance. What form does a business take, from the logo to the style of the dress to the architecture to the products? Scale is next. Is the business built for people, or is it built to intimidate people? Does it take our breath away? Does it make us laugh? Does it say, as Disneyland announces at the moment you walk through the gates, "This is going to be a hell of a good time"? Fourth in the visual matrix is order. Order is just what it says. It is all things in their place. It is clean. It is cleanliness. It is impeccability. It is deep, abiding sense of control. It is the meticulous attention paid to the maintenance, to the surface of things, of sustaining the newness, the freshness, the essence of things. We have envisioned them new. Fifth in importance is detail. Detail is the care that one puts into the little things of the business, so as the people look closer, they are surprised by what they find. And sixth is information. Every business must visually find a way to transmute meaningful information to its customers, its employees, its suppliers, and its lenders. The information that they each perceive they need in the most visually compelling way possible. For a successful enterprise, serving up The visual ideal is not an option, it's a necessity. Chapter 4, the Emyth enterprise in the first category of preference. Our next chapter is going to be chapter 5, the second category of preference, the emotional ideal. So you just tapped into the book read of the book The Emyth Enterprise, How to Turn a Good Idea into a Thriving Business, part of our holistic book club. Thank you for tapping into this chapter read. Tomorrow, we'll do a chapter review. And if you were watching this video on the Mighty Networks app, make sure you go to the next one, scroll down, you'll be able to watch the review. Okay? But I guess I can do the review today, but I'd rather just do it tomorrow since it was such a long chapter.